and get a very nice crisp edge. I don't want to lose that crisp edge, so I'm going to slice into it, bring the handle around, roll it over. Hi y'all, welcome to my shop. Today we're going to turn this really fun project, this little off-axis little bird with a beak. This is well within the range of a novice turner, as long as you've got a grasp on those three basic principles of number 1, sharp tools, number 2, ride the bevel, and number 3, cut with a grain. Let's get started. Okay, first thing we're going to do, we're going to take this small block of wood. You can scale your project up.
These ducks are also scalable, as you can see for this taller one.
I don't know that I'd make it much smaller, but this block of wood is approximately 2.25 inches square and about 4.5 inches long. Mount it between centers. The first thing we're going to do is just get it round. You can use a bowl gouge, you can use a skew. I'm going to use a spindle roughing gouge because I think that works best for most of this between centers where you've got parallel grain, parallel with a bed weight. And we're just going to round this up. I could touch a piece of turning wood, but I think it's a terrible habit to get into. Check it when it's stopped and you're going to be a lot safer. Now we're going to put a tenon on here. I'm going to use a little wider parting tool. You want the tenon a little bit deeper than you might normally have, but not so deep that it'll bottom out in your chuck. Okay, so now we've got a round and a tenon. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and mount this in a chuck. Now, normally we would mount it just like this, but in this case we're going to pull it sideways as far as we can where it's touching the jaws on one side and steel is touching the bottom, but it's definitely set kilter. Now we're going to tighten it up, rotate it, tighten it up. Now we're going to bring up the tailstock support, and I'm just going to penetrate this. I'm not going to push too hard. I just want a little bit of support to reduce the chances of it flying off. Alright, now we're going to measure a distance of about, I think 2.25 inches. And that's going to be the head to the body. Alright, I'm just going to go ahead and mark that line. Okay, so we're going to cut from this line down and turn the neck and the head. First thing you want to do is make sure your speed is appropriate. Start at a low level, and for a lot of mini lathes that might be around 500. Try it at 500. If your lathe is not shaking, you can go up maybe to the next speed, which might be about 800. We'll stop right there. And now we're just going to start taking off wood, light cuts, very light cuts. Now the head is going to be about 7/8 inches in diameter. Now I'm working my way back and I'm watching the ghost image to make that a little easier. To make it a little easier, it helps if you have a dark background because that'll give you a little better contrast on the shadow. Okay, so you can kind of see the profile. Just keep working it down. Now, since I've got a heavy lathe and it's not shaking with this small piece of wood, I'm going to turn the speed up a little bit because I am turning some air and bracing this cut to go in. I can see that line, which is the top of the body. Gotta be careful where I put my finger. Try to keep a continuous motion if possible. Now I've got it turned down to about the right size for the head. We're going to make a 7/8 of an inch, so we're going to measure that. Ought to be pretty close. Don't have too much further to go. We also want to leave about 1/4 inch of waste that we're going to have to cut off to remove any damage from the live center point. So let me take a parting tool and just kind of take that down a little bit, just so I can measure it. Now we're going to come in from the side and just mark the bottom of the head at 7/8 of an inch. I think we can maybe move the tool rest in a little bit closer now that we've removed some wood. I'm going to make a V-cut there. I'm going to go ahead and use a skew. But you could use this spindle gouge if you like, but it's just to make it a little easier to define that head and where the neck's going to be. Okay, now we're going to turn this head around. Now, it's ideal if you can make the head perfectly round. That'd be the goal. But turn it to a shape you can live with. Now, I've got to remove some of this. I had just a little minor catch in that upper wing, so we're just going to bring this back a little bit more. I've got my shop assistant as videographer.
Yay!
Alright, now I can see that ghost line. I don't know if you can see it here, so now I want to come in and catch it right on that line we drew, about 2.5 inches, and go straight in and concave this around. Just keep that going. Take a look at it. Yeah, that's looking good.
Looks cool.
That neck, I wanted that neck to be about 1/4 of an inch, but we don't have to get crazy with that. But we're going to go ahead and we got a little bit more to go. Before we go much further, I want to go ahead and drill a hole for the beak while it's supported. Alright, so I'm going to drill a hole. I like to have that beak turned sideways and slightly down, so I'm kind of looking for the right position. And I'm going to mark that with an awl. And I find it easier to use a brad point drill bit if you've got one. And I'm doing a 3/16. Pick an appropriate size, and then slowly drill it deep enough to hold that beak we're going to put on there later. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and take this down just a little bit more. So you can see, I think on here we've got this line, so I want to come back to this line, get a little deeper cut, bring it in and take nice, slow, smooth cuts. If you're not cutting smoothly, maybe you need to go sharpen your tool. I'm going to turn the speed up just a little bit. Now, I'm going to be very careful of that entry cut. I want to go in with the bevel perpendicular to the wood, bracing it with my finger to keep it from skating, with the flute toward about 3 o'clock, and slowly twist the handle around. And I want a nice concave flare, continuous cut on the neck. Then I want to come in here from the bottom of the head to meet it. And you can use this tool just slightly, almost like a skew, by just bringing it over and slicing with it. Okay, now before we leave this and go to our next operation, I've got two things to do. I want to sand it and I want to take off the top of that waste from the head. So let's do that before I sand it. So I'm going to turn the tool rest as close as I can, and we're going to take a very small detail gouge and take very, very light cuts. Otherwise, you're liable to pop this head off or pull it out of the chuck since we don't have any tailstock support. I want to cut on center, so I need to lower the tool rest a little bit more. And we're just going to slowly take off that little knob. Might get a little bit of chatter. It's only supported by that 1/4 inch of wood at the neck. I'm using very green wood. We're going to go ahead and sand it now. Turn this off. I'm going to use a pretty coarse sand grit, about 100, because it's going to clog up. I want to be real careful to get the top here and hold it like this so it'll knock my hand away in case I get it caught. Just to get the top bite. Now I'm going to fold it over, get down in the neck. And since it's wet, that's probably about as close as we're going to get to sanding. Now, for the next step, we're going to straighten it back up in the chuck and seat it against the shoulders. Now, I'm going to pick up the cut right here, right on that edge, and bring it in. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark a V-cut with this skew. It's going to be the bottom of the body. I want to pick up that cut at that edge and get a very nice crisp edge. I don't want to lose that crisp edge, so I want to slice into it. Bring the handle around. Come on down with the body. Roll it over. This is going to get in the way, this edge, so I'm going to brace it here and kind of remove some of this. Now, before I go much further, I want to decide where the base is going to be. So I'm going to make a parting cut right here. And just so I'll be able to control how far down with this cove with the feet, I'm going to go ahead and start that parting cut. So I'm going to take a thin parting tool. This is just going to be where we're going to part it off. But I'm not going to go down very deep, just enough to mark it. We're going to go straight in so we don't get any ripples, and then we're going to drop it a little bit. Just enough to mark it. Now I can come in and we're going to leave the base at the bottom about 1/4 inch thick. So that's where I'm going to come in. Well, I didn't tighten my banjo like I should have. Alright, straight in, slide the bevel, sweep up. When I get to the bottom, I got to change directions. We're just doing a cove going downhill, and we get to the bottom, we got to come in from the other direction. Cove. Scoop up in the middle. Alright, let's check out the shape. And again, we want to keep that nice crisp edge there. We'll sand away that pencil marking. So now all I want to do is come in here and make a cove where the feet are going to be. So I'll come in from both sides. Scoop up. Come in from the bottom. Pick up the cut. Scoop up. And out, up, and out, up, and out. Now I'm going to switch to a little bit smaller gouge, so 3/8 inch, that was a 1/2 inch. Make it a little easier to get in there on that cove. This one's got a little blunter tip. Scoop through the middle. Through the middle. I didn't tell you how thick to make the feet. That's your judgment. I think that's probably not bad. I think I might want to go a little smaller. And that's about 9/16. But I think I'll leave that. I've got a nice smooth cut here. I've got a nice crisp edge, so I'm going to go ahead and sand this off, being careful not to lose that crisp edge. And we'll sand that off camera.
Action!
Alright, now I've got it sanded to about 240. And I'm going to go ahead and part it off. I'm going to use a thin parting tool, making sure I got my banjo down. And we'll just slow the speed down to no more than about 1,000. And Okay. There we've got the body of the duck, and now let me show you how we're going to turn the beak. Okay, to turn the beak, I like to use these pen jaws, P-E-N, for turning pen blanks. That works well, and if you don't have pen jaws, I'll show you another technique. But let's go ahead and... If you don't have a small set of jaws to hold a scrap for the beak, such as pen jaws, you can always take a spindle scrap that you got, pull it out of your scrap bin, drill a hole in it appropriate for the size scrap that you're going to make the jaws out of. In this case, I drilled a 5/8 inch hole. I took this little scrap I had between centers, turned it 5/8 inch to fit the hole. Could be a 1/2 inch, could be a 3/8 inch, whatever you have. Using just a little bit of carpenter's glue here. I'm just going to put that in there. Tap it in place. I've got a very snug fit. And then to make sure I've got it centered, I'm going to go ahead and bring up a 60-degree cone and use that just to center it, really not holding it. And that's got it. Let it dry and it'll be ready to turn. Turn a beak. My finger under here, just give a little bit of support. And I think that looks good. Now we're simply going to take a little bit of 240 grit, just sand it a little bit. Okay. Now we got a beak. Let's see if it fits the bird. If not, we can touch it up with a bit of sandpaper. Oh, that's a perfect fit. I'll put a little wood glue on there. Actually, since this is green, I'll probably use CA. If it was dry, I would use carpenter's glue. And that just about has it. Now we can add eyes. Let me show you a couple of techniques for adding eyes. Two common methods of eye treatment on small items like this. The two on the right, I used puff paint. That's an acrylic paint. You can pick it up for about $1 a bottle. Used for texturing on t-shirts and such. The one on the left, I just drilled, I think about a 1/16 of an inch hole, and then use a little felt tip pen to kind of line the inside of that. Here's the scene from behind the lathe. Here's my camera operator, Pepper, and my videographer and shop fairy. And I've got her sister over here, Poet, is the audience. Here's my shop assistant, Poet, sweeping the shop for me. Thanks, Poet.
You're welcome.
And here's my videographer.